So I wanted to talk to you. Oh, wait, I'll set my timer so we don't overrun. I wanted to talk about the challenges that some of the maternity staff are currently facing. And in the next series, Sue has kindly invited me to come back on to talk about ways that we can overcome those. So over the past 15 years, I've supported maternity staff in particular around addressing some of trauma, stress, burnout and moral injury. And so I think there's a huge amount of factors that impact on their mental health and well-being in the workplace. Hannah Dallin and colleagues a few years ago done a study which looked at the role of fear in maternity and highlighted the top 10 things that midwives were afraid of coming into work. And I think this doesn't necessarily mean that you feel necessarily fearful. So you mightn't feel anxious, you mightn't feel fearful coming into work. However, if there's a culture or there's messages around that things can go wrong, or there's a lot of media on a subconscious level that can really play out in how we feel and how we behave. The pandemic, I've been supporting a lot of maternity staff, and at Make Birth Better, I led 2 research projects looking at the impact of the pandemic on midwives and also the impact of the pandemic on women and birthing people and their partners. And when I was sitting looking at both data sets, what was really apparent was, although there were very different experiences, actually, there was a lot of parallels. So women and birthing people were navigating a system in maternity often for the first time, and understandably the amount of anxiety and uncertainty that brought for them. And equally, maternity staff and midwives were also navigating a pandemic that they had never encountered before. Some were redeployed to other services. And what was very clear throughout that was the impact of some of them being traumatized. The effects of moral injury and moral distress was really, really affecting their mental health and well-being, so much so that many of them shared that they wanted to leave their profession. Obviously, over the last few weeks in particular, maternity services have really been in the media. And for me, I am so passionate about maternity and not only supporting women and birthing people and their families, but also for me, on the other side of that coin is staff. And although a massive driver is around ensuring that maternity services are safe, for me, it's ensuring maternity services are safe for everyone, those who work in it and those who access those services too. And we can't begin to address safety in maternity without addressing the impact of mental health, workplace cultures, and organisation and the role of leadership. I'm not here with solutions. I guess I'm here just to give some of my experiences, what I think are things that could be helpful, and feel free to take whatever you think might be useful in it. So on an organizational level, I guess there's a top-down and a bottom-up response. So it's not the sole responsibility of the individual maternity worker to manage their own mental health. There's also the organizational responsibility. And in that, it's identifying ways on how the culture or some of the systemic issues within maternity services and the trust and organisations impact on staff and their mental well-being. So on a team level, I do lots of stuff around how important it is to create psychological safety. For those of you who may not be au fait with the term, psychological safety means that you're able to speak up, you're able to share ideas, you're able to make suggestions, give opinions, without feeling that you are going to be punished in any way, and that there is open, clear dialogue. And that's irrespective of hierarchy. So, for example, that a student midwife would feel very comfortable and encouraged, actively encouraged, to perhaps give feedback on a consultant and how they have articulated something or behaved in certain ways. And I think this is really, really effective when hierarchies are flattened. So there is no hierarchy within the team. That sense of teamwork is across everyone. And I've seen that massively in pockets of maternity, I have to say, particularly throughout the pandemic. You know, it was incredibly heartwarming to see how some teams came together for the first time, really supported one another in that sense of looking after one another. We're all in it together, that common humanity, and how psychological safety, ironically, was created for the first time because of the pandemic. This can happen. This is achievable completely. So on an individual level, so I talk a lot about how as individuals we can ensure that we manage our own well-being and our own mental health. And for me, I'm aware that I'm running through this. I could spend a long time talking on each of these. For me, there's something about preparing students and junior staff to work in maternity. And what I mean by that is working in maternity is a really tough environment. You know, it's emotionally challenging, it's physically challenging, and personally, it can be really challenging as well. And although a huge focus is on aspects of pastoral education with students and junior staff, I think there's also something about preparing students and junior staff that what you've been trained in and how you might work could be two very different environments that actually they may not match. And preparing them that at times there are going to be, you aren't going to be able to provide the care that you want to, that you're trained to, you know, that aspect of the moral distress and moral injury. You are going to see things that are potentially traumatizing. And I think in that preparatory way, we support, it's like the forewarned, forearmed, do you know, that we support students and junior staff to know what they're going into, and not in a scaremonger and disparaging way, in a way of, you know, just like midwives are trained on a range of birth procedures, this is also part of that training. Also recognizing symptoms of mental health, not only in themselves, but also their colleagues. Everybody has a mental health status, the same way we have a physical health status. And at times throughout all of our lifetimes, we will experience mental ill health. And so it's helping and supporting staff to know what things to look out for in themselves, what things to look out for in their colleagues. Utilising the role of the PMAs, massive a fan of PMAs. I've just finished in April, along with the team at Healthy You, training 800 PMAs in psychological boost across England. It was the most humbling and challenging and really informative experience for me personally. I learned so much, and that was really focused on how to prevent moral injury, how to address vicarious trauma in their roles, how to manage burnout, compassion fatigue. And it's not saying that, you know, these are all going to have a massive impact. They're all on a scale, you know, and the things that we can put in place in those nurturing environments that midwives do incredible jobs of creating for women and birthing people can also be created for them as well. And utilising the role of the PMA is one way to do that. Expecting work to have an impact, you know, we all, I believe, if we are empathically connected to our work and the relationships that we form in work, you know, either with colleagues or women and birthing people, that's going to have an impact. You know, my own experience of personally of being around midwives in my journey of maternity with my children is I totally felt loved by my midwife. That had to have an impact, you know, and everything went well. So there's also something about what happens when perhaps care doesn't go as expected. And supporting staff to have those conversations. And the last one is leadership. This is the linchpin that holds everything together. It is it's the thread that weaves everything in maternity. That if we don't have compassionate leadership, and I don't say compassionate leadership in terms of a soft way or a fluffy way. To be a compassionate leader is really tough, you know, because you have to connect with something in yourself, your own vulnerability, to be able to empathize and understand and lead those people in your service, and to do that while also navigating, I guess, the other challenges that maternity services can bring is a huge challenge and also very rewarding. That's me, kept to time, boom.
Wow.
Thanks for watching this video from the Maternity and Midwifery Forum. For more expert opinion and analysis, hit the button below to subscribe.